This is In Center Ring. I'm your host, Jonathan Lee Iverson. She has steered the reins of her own destiny from humble beginnings to dizzying heights, crafting a fierce and eclectic body of work. In Center Ring presents Dr. Tiffany Renée Jackson. You're a pedagogue.
Yes.
I love that title, pedagogue.
Yes.
And you're also...
It sounds so important, doesn't it?
Yeah. and also your fitness. I mean, you've really gone to the heights of fitness. I mean, bodybuilding is no joke.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of friends who are in it, and God bless you, because I don't know how y'all do it. I love donuts too much. And I don't have the willpower, but, you know, I've always believed in, of course, the synergy between a fit body being, you know, girding a fit voice. And so, I mean, that's your field of expertise. You've been a consultant for many a singer, some who we know, and you've been cracking the whip for some of them for a very long time. And I'd love for you to discuss that, you know, like your passion between music and, you know, fitness.
Yes. Wow. First of all, thank you for having me. It's always a wonderful thing when someone invites you into their platform and who believes that you have something to say that people are interested in hearing. So that's a privilege for me. So thank you for that. I'm passionate about health and fitness. When it comes to music, I'm not passionate about music. I am music.
I like that.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I am a singer. So that doesn't breed passion for me. It's just, that's part of my identity, right? I was born with that. Passion, I fueled. Passion is something that came about. Passion is something that I have to continuously stay on top of. Like, voice is there. It's always there. I could always fall back on, I'm a singer. People know I sing, right? But with my passion, which is bodybuilding or mind, body, soul building, which is what it has become for me in the 21st century, I find that to have a fit body means to have a fit lifestyle, which means if you have a fit lifestyle, then you have integrity and that you have discipline. True discipline, because that's what it takes. And those things, it starts to grow your character. So for me, I in the beginning, I saw it just as like something that could make me look good aesthetically. You know what I'm saying? And then added to my singing, become this identity of the opera singing bodybuilder. But now I'm looking at it like, wow, that it's more than just what I look like. It's more or less about the lifestyle itself and what it says about who I am as a person and a teacher. So how it fits in to being a singer is, as an opera singer, as you know, it's very physical to be an opera singer in particular, because we have to learn how to use our bodies to project the voice. We talk often about posture. I don't think we actually talk about body enough in the classical industry, because I think, and it's become a topic of taboo where people are afraid of shaming somebody because of their weight and their body size. And so you have to kind of walk that tight line. But to me, it's two different things. It's not necessarily about how much fat or not you have on your body or how much muscle you show or not. It really is about how healthy are you when you're standing on that stage and you have to kneel or waltz or do something that is a bit more acrobatic than what you would do ordinarily, right? It takes stamina to do that for 10, 15, 20 years. And most opera singers, they want longevity. And when they think of longevity, most of the time, they're only thinking about, are my vocal cords going to last for me? Am I going to be able to continue to use my voice for years and years and years? And I go back to the day when Leontine Price had her farewell at the Met singing Aida. How good she looked. She looked fabulous. She looked strong,
yes, she did.
and healthy, and balanced. And girlfriend had some cute little bicep. I'm like, Leontine took care of herself. So I use that as an example. When you retire, you don't want to be pushed out because you have not taken care of your full body. So I see it as something that has been neglected, and especially in the classical music industry and with the opera singers, because everyone is so afraid that they're going to either feel or be shamed when we talk about body, which is sad that it's come to that.
I remember when I was in my boy choir, we used to go to summer camp. We had to wake up 6 in the morning. We had to run to the gym. We do calisthenics in the morning. And they were so adamant then when we were kids. And, you know, Dr. Walter J. Turnbull, founder and director, the late great Dr. Walter, he would tell us, he said, look, he put that in our minds. He said, you know, you are athletes and your body will actually support your voice. And I kept that with me my whole life. But, you know, it's interesting. In the pop field, it's almost like a requirement because they're about the aesthetic. So that's going to naturally go. But I don't think people realize how hard a Beyonce may actually work. Tell me about some of the challenges you've had with singers. I don't want to name any names. But
I'm not going to name no names.
But I know it's a bit, it has to be a bit challenging when you're trying to mentor singers and you have the pedigree of a singer. So you know what they're going through. You know the psychological dynamics that they're, or excuses they're throwing out there as to why, you know, you can't really bite down and have a disciplined physical life. What are some of the things you run into?
Well, you know, I started this journey literally 10 years ago. This is my 10th year anniversary as a natural bodybuilder. So for 10 years, a lot of my friends and colleagues have watched my sort of journey. Like, so I talked about it more so from my own perspective and what I shared my journey. I shared a lot of pictures and my meals when I was eating. And so I demonstrated over a 10-year period that this is something that I am dedicated to. This is not a fad, a phase, or a hashtag. Okay? It ain't. So I preface that to say many of them seem to be more interested in fads, or like right now, it's the in thing to be vegan. Now that's a wonderful thing. That's great. I get it. I understand that. But you can still eat 3 bags of vegan potato chips.
Yeah.
Okay? You can still eat a whole loaf of vegan bread. Okay? So let me just say, it always comes back to discipline. Okay? I don't care what kind of diet you're on and what your level of macronutrients, I don't care what it is. It comes down to discipline. I call it mind, body, soul building. Train the mind, which controls the body. Wait, how do I put this? Train the mind, which controls the body that houses your soul.
Ooh,
so at the end
I
of
like
the
that.
day, yeah.
That's a t-shirt.
I'm writing a book. It's called Mind, Body, Soul Building. Train the mind to control the body, which houses your soul. Man,
You
it's
heard
about
it here first, folks.
and it's new, so I had to really think about it. But we have to think about the idea of discipline. My clients aren't disciplined human beings. Opera singers in particular are very self-indulgent individuals. We're very me, because we have to be. We have to be. Because our entire existence is about, okay, I got to care for my voice. I got to put my scarf on, my hat. I got to be for the rest. I have to make sure when I get to my place, my destination, that I go into the hotel. And so, and it's not a bad thing, but we're inundated with how can I take care of this monster here, right? That's not necessarily, I guess you can say that's discipline, but it's like, I'm not messing with my coins kind of discipline. It's my livelihood, it's my lifestyle. It's how I take care of myself in terms of money and paying my rent and my family, you know, bringing the money home to take care of yourself, of your family. But when it comes to discipline, that's something that requires solitude and a reckoning, requires a crossroads, coming to the crossroads and having a moment of like, oh my goodness, I really have to get real with myself. And that is very difficult for me to get them to do. So when I consult clients, the first thing I ask them, and it's going to sound really forward. So I worked, and I still continue to work with the trainer, a man, a brother who is a bodybuilder to his soul. He's a meathead. So he has not been kind in his words, but they have, for that reason, I like his approach, because now those words don't have any power with me. Now I know if what he's saying to me hurts me, then maybe I need to search my soul. So for instance, I'll say to people, why are you fat? And they do this, right? I want them to, because I want to see how they're going to react to it. These are private consultations. So when I ask them that, they're like, so what do you mean? Then I'm like, why is your body composition the way it is? Your body mass index. Why are you morbidly obese? So then they're like, well, I don't eat a lot. Well, I don't do this. And I'm like, how did you get the way you are? So I keep rephrasing the question, rephrase, right? I start with the shock first. I shock the hell out of them to see how they're going to respond to the word, because fat is a thing. It's a macronutrient. Fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. It's a thing. Triglycerides, it's a thing, right? It has become a word that is laced with a lot of negativity. So when you say it, people get like, I'm not fat. Where you go? You know, it's almost, you know, people get really defensive. And I'm like, no, it's a thing. It's not meant to make you feel horrible. It's meant for you to think about your body composition, your body mass index, right? So then I keep rephrasing, and then they go, oh yeah, I eat a lot of cookies at 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, okay, now can we just have a conversation now? Oh, my mother called me fat when I was a kid. Okay, now can we have a conversation? You know, or I was in an abusive relationship. Okay, now we can have a real conversation. Or I just eat all day because I eat emotionally when bad things are happening, because I happen to be an emotional eater myself, but I'm aware of it. So I win more than I lose because I'm aware of it. Like I said, now I'm talking about mind, body, soul building. Asking people questions about why, then it'll go back to their childhood, to something a friend said to them in school, how somebody made them feel fat shamed when they were a kid or whatever. And then they internalize that. And then certain words become triggers for them. So this is what I deal with when I'm dealing with opera singers in particular.
That's a whole book. That's a whole book.
I got a few of them in me. I don't know how I'm gonna get them out, but I got a few.
No, you got to get them out. That is something else, you know, because obviously it doesn't just apply to opera singers. I mean, of course, it applies to many of us in the populace in various fields. I'd love to really tap into when you became aware of your voice, your love for singing, your love for music, when you became aware that you are a singer. This is what I do.
Yeah. When did that happen for me?
Yeah.
Wow. You know, I grew up in the Black church tradition. So, you know, I grew up listening to the sisters just wail, listening to the bishop just wail before her sermon. I grew up listening to sisters singing gospel hymns and songs. And I talk about this as well in my one woman show that I wrote. I talk about this idea of growing up in the Black church tradition and finding my voice, figuratively and literally, and learning that I can move the human condition with my voice. Like I can affect people. I can get people to go hallelujah or shout or fall out, speak in tongues. What is this thing? What is this thing that happens that causes people to react? You know what I mean? And as a kid, I was like, that's fun. You know what I mean?
Well, those sisters, man, I tell people all the time, I'm in the camp with Luther Vandross, who said very famously, you know, there's nothing in all the world aesthetically more beautiful than the Black female voice. When I think of singing, there's the Black female and then there's everybody else. It's like soccer. It's like there's Brazil and there's everything else. It's like, and it's true, and it's across the genres. It doesn't matter what genre it is, but there is something about the Black church tradition. Some of our greatest singers have come right out of there, across genres, from Aretha to Sam Cooke to Leontine Price, to Jesse Norman.
Yeah.
I mean, they've all come right out of there. Yeah, I'm curious also to know about your transition to opera then, and how that church tradition really anchored that.
Yes, it's interesting because I went to a holiness fire baptized church, on Sundays, Mondays and Wednesdays and Saturdays.
All week long.
The whole week. And then every day I was going to a Catholic school. So it was in Catholic school where I learned different types of songs, like Let There Be Peace on Earth. And a lot of the nuns were big fans of people like John Denver and different types of singers. And so I think from that point, I started to, be interested in different types of music outside of my Black church tradition. From there, I was connected to a local music school in New Haven, and I started taking voice lessons. That was exactly what happened. I went from singing in church, going to Catholic school and singing different types of music and being interested in anything that, I could do and sing a melody to, I was happy about. But it was when I started to go to the local music school in New Haven, I met a teacher, a white woman named Tay Cope. And she taught me Rodgers and Hart and Rodgers and Hammerstein songs and the 17th and 18th century composers, and I started singing Carmel Ben and Tulo Sai and rolling my R's and, stuff like that.
Songs and arias.
Exactly. A girlfriend was like, Tiffany, you're starting to sound like me. I was like, is that good? I think that's good. Okay, that's good. And then, of course, people in the community, a lot of my benefactors and allies would hear me in concerts and started suggesting that I go to different summer programs and have I considered going to college to study voice? And that's how it happened. Exposure.
Isn't it amazing, too, how there's also this community that opens up to us that's unfamiliar?
Yes. And I think we need to tell those stories more often. And I tell them as often as I can. I'm like, if I tell you that a white person took me to my first classical concert and I ate asparagus for the first time at an ally's home, I was like, what is this, like a tree branch on my plate? It was allies who bought my gowns for my concerts at Yale University when I was a graduate student there, right? This is just the truth. I mean, most of the people who have been able to put their money where their mouth is, they didn't look like me, right? And I had to have a conversation with my mom about this. And I was crying one day and I said, Mom, I just wish we had the resources. I wish I could just, because, I don't want anything from anybody. I want to earn my own. I want to be able to walk through the world on my own merits. I'm just tired of having to, like you say, charm your way out of certain things. I'm tired of having to do the jig. You know what I mean? I don't want to do the jig no more. I just want to look at my bank account and look at my family, and what I need is there so I can help other people. Yeah. And I remember my mother, who is a woman who has an 8th grade education, raised in Jim Crow South, say something to me that has stuck with me to this day. And I tell her every day, I'm like, Mom, thank you for saying this to me. She said, listen, you have the talent and they have the resources. They don't have your talents and you don't have their resources. You need one another. So just get over it.
I love that. Well, I'm a fan of your mother. I haven't met her yet.
Listen.
But you be teasing me online with her cuisines and her ungrateful daughter and her good health.
You would love it.
I just want your mother to know I love you. And anytime you want to cook for me, I will be there. And to know she has that wisdom. And I love the bond you have with your mother because you really praise her a lot. I can tell that there's a really beautiful bond, and a beautiful bond that you have with your family, which brings us to your wonderful one-woman play that you've been playing online. And I definitely want people to really look at it. It's beautiful from the hood to the Ivy League.
Yeah.
You know, please tell me about how you just sat down and decided, you know what, I'm going to put my soul out there and I'm going to share this this part of me, this journey of mine that's unique and fabulous and all.
Thank you, Jonathan. Well, you know, some things just write themselves, you know? And this thing, man, I've been living the life of what I wrote about all my life. So at the end of the day, I just had to have the guts and the wherewithal to sit down when the moment presented itself after I finished my, you know, my formal education, and said, you know what, I need to figure this thing out. My father died in 2018, unfortunately, in the fire. And my father didn't raise me and my brother. My father, you know, and that's a story I want to tell. One day, my father, you know, went AWOL from Vietnam, and they threw him in jail. And my mother said after that, he was not the same man. And so we could not cohabitate with my dad because of his psychoses, his psychological state of mind, and his drug addictions and things. But he was a good man. He was an educated man. And I inherited a lot of wonderful things from him, including my face, just like my dad. And I started after I was able to somehow process his death and the way he died. I was like, wow, that dude had a rough life, and he died like he went out of here literally in the blaze. Like, seriously, Dad? I'm like, damn, man, he had a rough one. But after I was able to process his death, I felt like somehow I received this like overwhelming abundance of like newfound energy. And creativity. You know, it's almost like when my father left here, whatever untapped energy or potential he had within him, it's almost like he left it with me.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I just, all of a sudden, I just started writing things down. And I started thinking, okay, I've never written a play or a musical or a show before, so I'm going to use my experience in performing in operas and use that model and figure it out. I'm like, okay, it's going to be in 3 acts. I have been writing about these 3 very particular pillars for a very long time: gift, passion, purpose. So gift is exactly that. So the first act is gift. It's dedicated to my, what I call my spiritual endowment, that thing that has allowed me to find a path, to follow a path that has led me to be in spaces where I would not have been without it. So the first act is called gift, and each act has a mantra. And gift, the mantra is rise and shine, give God the glory. And I use the mantra to kind of send a message to the band that it's time to do a turnaround or move to the next scene, because the dialogue is all ad-libbed. There are topics, I cover topics, but I don't write down any of the dialogue. It's all happening in the moment. And so I start talking about my mother's humble beginnings in Titus, Alabama, and her family and my dad's life. And then I move into how we moved to Connecticut, and I met my mother's relatives. I talk about growing up in the projects in New Haven, and the culture in the 70s and the 80s was beautiful until crack cocaine was pumped into our neighborhoods. I talk about that. I talk about my brother's brush with death. So I tell these sort of narratives, like little vignettes throughout the whole thing. But the overarching idea in the first act is gift, right? I'm talking about these narratives, but all the while, I'm taking voice lessons, I'm singing in recitals, you know, I'm singing at different types of events. My voice and my gifts are helping me to navigate, but all the while, all these other subplots are happening in my world, right? This is act 1. Act 2 is passion. Mind, body, soul, will. Fuel the desire until the desire fuels you. My trainer coined that phrase, and I stole it from him. Fuel the desire until the desire fuels you.
I love that.
Bodybuilding is my passion. I'm passionate about that. I could talk about health and fitness and body for a long time, so much so where I went and got a certification in personal training and sports nutrition. Yeah. Now I'm studying for a special population certification, which I haven't had time to read in a while, but I got to get back to that. And in passion, I talk about my education a bit. I really accelerate through that. I talk about 9/11, how the scare caused me to move back to Connecticut, out of New York. And then I started singing all around the world. And I talk about the crossroads I had at 38 years old when I started to bodybuild.
Mm.
And I talk about that journey. But as I talk about my body journey, I'm faced with the idea of how part of the reason I needed that sort of transition in my life was because of I needed to reclaim my body, right? As a lot of young people experience when they're kids, violation by the hands of people who are supposed to be there to take care of you, who end up somehow violating you. This happened to me. So as I was bodybuilding, I was also in some ways healing my body, reclaiming my body, re-owning, taking back ownership of my body. And as I started thinking about reclaiming body and ownership of body, then I started thinking about Sarah Bartman, the Hottentot Venus. And I think about how she was sold into slavery in Europe, in the circus, and how how her body was on display in a museum for damn near over a century before Nelson Mandela demanded that they return her remains so that she could have proper burial in her country. I talk about the over-sexualization of bodies, of Black bodies, talk about violence against bodies, Black bodies, police brutality, the lynching culture. And then throughout all of these narratives, when I can no longer advance the action, I sing a song. So of course, I sing Strange Fruit in this particular act. And I do a lot of moaning and singing using the blues idiom a lot in the second act, as I am almost, I don't know, trying to feel perhaps a little bit of what some of our ancestors must have felt. I try so hard to go into that space, and I bring people along with me. It's heavy. It's very heavy. The second act is very heavy about body, body, body. And then I transition into positive images of Black bodies and beautiful Black bodies. So I talk about Bessie Smith and a little bit of her background and how her body, she said she's going to be able to be who she want to be, sleep with who she ever want to, males or women, who going to stop me, right? I do a portion where I talk about, I wonder what Bessie Smith would think about Me Too hashtag, right. And then as I was trying to channel her personality, the thing that came into my spirit was like, Me Too will shoot you. That's what Me Too will do. Because we know girlfriend carried a gun, right? Yeah, she had to protect her intellectual property and her body and her purse. So I channel body in many different ways. The body becomes almost like, at times, a sacrificial lamb or a martyr, or a thing of beauty, or a thing to appropriate, as European women did with Sarah Bartman's body. Yeah. Right? It's like the thing that caused Sarah Bartman to be treated inhumane became a thing that women began to emulate in the 18th century with their souls and various things like that. And now a lot of women don't understand when they are appropriating this idea of an enlarged bottom and pumping different kinds of things in their butt to get a big butt and all that. They don't know what in the world they're appropriating. They have no idea.
Now, we've watched A Famous Family, which will remain nameless.
Yes, let's do that.
Created a whole culture of basically white women suddenly transitioning to being ethnic.
No.
Everything is about booty. And I'm old enough to remember
everything is about booty. I'm over here trying to get my booty to go away. You know what I mean? I'm trying to lower my carb intake. I don't get it. I don't get that culture. I just don't understand it. But this is, what I go into deeply in the second act with passion. And then the third act is purpose. And I coined a phrase that Muhammad Ali used. Service to others is the rent you pay for your room on this earth.
Yeah.
I love that. When I read that, I said, I got to use that. In purpose, I talk about my own sort of journey in the now. And I think how I choose to live now. So for instance, I talk about teaching pop music and diversity at UConn when I was getting my doctorate degree, from minstrelsy to MP3.
Wow.
And during that talk, I talk about how, although I was there studying, musicology and theory and all this, that I would say the most enjoyable time I had there, and I think a most essential part of my education there, was teaching white kids pop music and diversity for 3 years as my TA assignment. That was it for me, because I would lock the door and we would have conversations.
They probably but I thought Elvis.
Now listen, right now I think about all those kids. I taught there for 3 years, so I probably touched the lives of about maybe 250 kids, mostly white kids. I guarantee you now, in this climate, they're thinking about that Black professor they had at UConn, probably their only one that they had. And when I tell you the letters I received from these kids at the end of the semester, I wish I had kept some of them, but some of the letters I received from them of gratitude that they could have real conversations for the first time in their collegiate careers meant the world to them, that we had that kind of respect for one another, that we could have these conversations.
I want to tap into your expertise in regards to maintaining yourself in a pandemic. We're all locked down, we're all in this space. I also see that you're giving of yourself, where, you're serenading your block. I thought that was so beautiful. But, what are the other things along with that you do, or that you would recommend to other performing artists, other creatives? What should you do, taking care of the body, the soul, the mind, your talent, your craft? What are some of the things that you've done during this time of quarantine and chilling?
I know, right? Well, first I had to take an inventory of what did I do pre-quarantine that I don't need to do anymore, that was useless. And what are those things that I need to carry through and continue? And then I started thinking about, what do I need to do post-quarantine that I did not do at all, that I need to incorporate. So I started to take an inventory of pre, post, and present tense. And then what I found myself doing is learning to do things that I did not know how to do, or things I've always wanted to learn how to do, like GarageBand. Now I can record a track. I'm like, yes, right? And iMovie. Now I can edit my own one-woman show that I've been releasing out there to share with people on Facebook. I learned how to edit and make movies and images and sound and all that. So I would say, learn to do something that you've always wanted to learn to do it now, because you're not going to do it after this is over, right? So that's the first thing I did. Also, as performers, particularly as opera singers, I know a lot of my friends, when this thing happened, they were hit, right? Not only just because the money was taken away, because it's like, what else do I do? What else can I do, right? See, I'd never had that struggle. I was always a person who had different streams of income and who, had other interests. I found that those things made me more interesting as a singer. And so I would recommend for singers, classical singers in particular, things are not going to go back to the way they used to. You can forget that. It's not going to ever be the same. So now let's figure out, how can we continue to, or build a brand for ourselves so that we can continue to have a presence, maybe not in live performances, but in the cyber world, right? So for instance, I'm going to be I'm already selling my one-woman show to do cyber performances of my one-woman show for a couple of organizations.
That's awesome.
I'm so excited about. I have a big performance coming up next month. That's one of the reasons why I was like, okay, we gotta get these biceps to come back. we gotta do something. So today I'm starting a new regimen, but it's because now I have that performance coming up where I call my boys because I have 4 members in the band. I'm like, guys, okay, I have this gig. This is what I'm gonna pay you. There's not gonna be anybody in the church. This church has the resources. It's just going to be the 5 of us and maybe their tech guy. And we're going to go and they're going to stream the show out to as many people as they can in the United States. So I'm excited about that. I encourage other artists to find a way to rebrand and figure out, how do I use this technology on social media to outshine people? Because right now, people are out there with the platforms now. And I mean, opera singers are coming out with the platforms. I'm like, whoa, everybody is a moderator. I think it's fantastic. My way has been to always talk to people. I've been doing this, right? So when I noticed that it was getting a little crowded, I said, okay, how do I regroup? I'm like, oh, okay, you got this one-woman show. Right? You don't have to ask anybody permission to, can I have my show so that I can repurpose it and repurpose the video and do. I don't have to do that because I own it, right? So that's another bit of advice is create something, own your stuff. Prince used to say, if you don't own your masters, your master owns you. Amen. So create your own stuff so that you can put it out there however you choose to put it out there. How did I take care of my body? Well, after 2 weeks of realizing that this thing was real, because I was paralyzed for 2 weeks, I was like, wait a minute. I didn't know what was happening. Every time I sneeze, I'm like, ooh, maybe something's wrong. Like, I was paranoid for 2 weeks.
Me too. I'm the same way.
Because I don't think anybody understood this thing. Even I felt like the medical professionals every day, they were coming up with new information about this thing. So after 2 weeks, I said, okay, I'm not buying any junk food and bringing it into this house. Because I can't do the amount of exercise and the volume of exercise that I was doing before. I was working out 6 days a week and walking damn near 5-6 miles a day. So I'm not doing that anymore. I can't do that. So what am I going to do? So I would do things like I bought saltless nuts. I got like dried fruit without sugar on it, like little snacks, not chips and candy bars and things like that. Maybe like a protein bar, something where I could just stave off the hunger. I did not have big meals all the time, because there is no way I can work this thing out. I'm putting all this food in, but I'm not using it. So what is it going to do? It's going to store. So I find myself just grazing more and having more salads and things that were much easier to digest when you aren't using as much energy. When you're leading a more sedentary lifestyle, you got to put less food in your system. So that's something concrete I did to take care of myself. I stopped watching a lot of Netflix. In the beginning, I was Netflixing, and I was like, I'd be up binging Netflix to 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I was like, loser. It's like, what is going on? Right. So I stopped doing that for sure. And I started walking to my office in town. I have an office at an Episcopal church where there's no traffic there now. And I have my spin bike. I rented a spin bike and I do virtual spin classes. My piano is there. And I also, like I said, have been learning a lot of new technology. I bought 2 microphones. I even bought a USB charger.
I love it.
Okay, it makes a lot of noise. And also I bought an interface so that I can start learning how to record and do voiceovers, because I have video that I want to repurpose. So I learned this technology. I didn't know any of it. I learned it during quarantine. And it's not that hard, but once you learn it, it's a trial and error thing. But once you learn it, it feels so gratifying to know, like, wow, I had to pay people hundreds of dollars to do this stuff for me. I also know how to build websites. So I just did my first website for a client this week.
You are quarantining well. We got to get a new hashtag. Quarantine. Tell you, I'm just over the moon that you could join me. Dr. Tiffany Renée.
Oh my God. That got a ring to it. It got a ring to it.